I was looking at 45 years to life. It was a life sentence, not a death sentence, you know. I didn't know if I would die in prison, but I knew that I needed to get living.
Hello, and welcome to the latest episode of the Unapologetically Yours podcast. I'm your host, Ashley Logan, and I'm so happy to have you here today. Unapologetically Yours is a podcast where we go deep on everything from spirituality to business, relationship and connection, belief systems, and in a world where we've been taught to play by the rules, I want to encourage everyone listening to do life your own way, to start to examine what's true for you, what's possible for you, where your dreams intersect with everything that you've been told, and create a life that is unapologetically yours. And today I'm delighted to introduce you to a guest who has done all of that and more. This woman and I were connected through a women's cohort that we participated in together. And one of the most incredible things, I was like, just absolutely gobsmacked by her story of resilience, heart, trust, and perseverance. So without further ado, I would like to introduce you to Misty McCray, storyteller, mother, movement guide, and founder of She Became the Way. Welcome to the show, Misty.
Thank you so much. I'm already in tears, so we'll see how this goes.
Express. You have such an incredible story of resilience. And even right now, you're juggling motherhood, building something new, trusting yourself. But this all started a few decades ago. And why don't you give us a sense of your story so that we can know you a little bit better as we go forward?
Okay. Well, it all started out with a dysfunctional family, like a lot of people. And by the time I was a teenager, I was doing things I thought I never would and just really looking for an escape. And I had gotten into some trouble and I had gotten arrested and I was let go out on bond. And I thought, I can't do this. This is not the life I want. So I moved away and I was starting a new life. And I still did not know what I was doing. And I just remember praying to God and a very surrendering moment. And I was like, hands up, I surrender. I don't know what I'm doing here. God, if you know something better than me, then take the wheel, because I don't know what I'm doing. And so a couple of months later, I got a knock on the door, August 29th, 2005. I was 24 years old, and the U.S. Marshals had surrounded the house. To shorten the story, I had gotten pulled in on a really big indictment. That was 30 people with 160 witnesses. It was a really big deal. And the day that they picked me up, I remember feeling my chest just like a weight had lifted off of me. And I was like, I was literally grinning on the way there because I thought this is going to be a great reset for me.
God.
I had no idea what was happening at that time. In any previous arrest, I'd gotten arrested and then got on bond. And, I'd never even been convicted of anything. Charges were dropped. And so as I'm leaving, I'm thinking this is going to be, I'm leaving the house I was living out. I was like, this is just going to be a great reset.
Were you thinking at that time, by the way, that this was going to be a reset in terms of that you'd get another slap on the wrist? Or
Absolutely.
Did you? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just going to get a bond like I always have. And not like there was a couple of arrests. It wasn't like I'd been arrested a lot of times, but I had been arrested a couple of times over the years. And I was like, I'll just get out on bond. And then this will give me a chance to like make some different decisions. And it's a big deal when you get arrested. So it makes you think. And it was like, okay, I know I'm going to get a couple of days and a really big like lesson here. I'm going to do better. So So I get to the federal courthouse, and I'd never been arrested federal before. And I didn't know what any of this meant, the severity of it at the time. But they took me in and they let me know that I was looking at 45 years to life. And yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. But I didn't comprehend that. I was like, okay, I'll just still get a bond and this is what's going to happen. It'll be fine. So after a couple of days, I was informed. Well, this is the federal system. It's not like the state. It's very likely you're not going to be getting a bond. And then it's like, what do you mean? And so now I'm starting to have questions, and I'm not even in fear yet. I'm just kind of in shock and just in disbelief and no way. And then a lady by the name of Hope, 3 days into this, comes to me and hands me an envelope, and she says, my pastor gave me this. I'd like to share it with you. I feel, that I need to. And in those days, that
Was
time,
Hope another inmate?
mm, hmm so she hands me this, and I just like, I could feel how this is a big deal, whatever this was. And so I waited till I was alone, and I went into my room when my bunkie wasn't there. And I opened this up, and it comes from Malachi 3:3. He sits as a refiner and a purifier of silver. And so the story goes, there were some women in a Bible study who were curious about what this meant about the character and nature of God. And one of the ladies was curious, and so she called a silversmith and said, can I come watch? And he said, yeah. And she didn't mention anything about her curiosity as to why. And she watched him hold a piece of silver over the fire where the flames were the hottest to burn away the impurities. And she said she thought about us being in such a hot spot to burn away our impurities as well. And so I obviously was thinking about, I was in a pretty hot spot. The story goes on that she watches and she says to the silversmith, so how do you know when the silver is fully refined? And he said, oh, that's easy, when I see my image in it. So if you're feeling the heat of the fire, just know that God has his eyes on you, will keep watching you until he sees his image in you. And so it was that moment that I held on to that, and I fully trusted that, okay, whatever happens is going to happen, and thank you, God. And so, yeah.
Okay, so first of all, so I am picturing 24-year-old Misty McCray. You have spent your life in a little bit of dysfunction, lack of support, and so you go seeking community in the wrong group of people and end up in a pretty hot spot. And through those actions, and you go to try to start life new. You move away and think that this is it. And then you get a knock on the door and you get taken away, you surrender to the experience, and next thing you realize you're looking at 45 years in prison. Holy
Yeah,
fucking shit.
absolutely. Yes. Yeah.
And what was it like? Like that feeling and that realization set in for you, coupled with this woman offering you a bit of a lifeline in a way, or a bit of perspective?
Yeah. I knew it was a life sentence, not a death sentence, And I didn't know if I would die in prison. But I knew that I needed to get living.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I want to stop and honor that woman, that 24-year-old you 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Man. So then what happened? I mean, I'm thinking about this where you have, like, yes, a minor arrest record and you're looking at 45 years. Did you feel like you were accurately and appropriately represented by the court system and all those things? Tell me how this all unfolded from there.
I was appointed a beautiful attorney that came to see me and was like there for me. And that gave me, even though he often did not have answers for me, he would show up and let me know, hey, look, just so you know, there's not really new answers. How you doing? And I'm like,
So at this
well,
point, you have no idea how long you're going to be there because you
I have no
haven't been
idea.
sentenced. And have you actually even been convicted?
No. So this is what happened. 3 years I sat in a county jail waiting to be sentenced. So for 3 years, I didn't have a verdict. For 3 years, I sat there needing dental work. For 3 years, I sat there and I was only allowed 3 books because it was a county jail. So I couldn't
Wait, 3 books
educate
at a
myself.
time, or
3 books
like,
ever.
my God.
I know. And there was no library. It's a county jail. So I felt a lot like, in some regards, I was decaying, like wasting away. But I just dug deeper inside. That's all I had.
And at this point, like, if you had had more financial resources, would you been able to like post bail and then wait for
No,
sentencing and how?
no, 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 no. Nope. There was no money couldn't buy me out of this. Nothing could get me out of this. There was nothing that was going to get me out of this. No one, nothing.
Well,
So,
one person.
I just made it my business. I got up every single day and I was the one that cleaned the entire unit. Like, it was so important for me for it to be clean. It was my house. I lived there. Everybody else was coming and going. And I would like save cups for like paper cups that I would get from commissary with coffee in it or whatever. I would save those for the new people coming in. And like, I made it my business to just have reasons to get up every day, and I would write and I would exercise and I did everything I could just to stay sane. And I wrote apologies to everybody I could ever think of. And I prayed, I did all that. And then I just knew that when I was going to court, I finally got a court date and I signed 24 to life. And so I didn't know what was going to happen. No, 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 no. They came 2.5 years in and said, would you like to sign the 24 years to life? And I did not. And so they gave me another offer and it was 15 to life. So that's always a gamble. But anyway, I pled guilty 15 to life and they could give me whatever they wanted. Went to court and I was sentenced to 9 years plus 5 years probation. And I was sent to Tallahassee, Florida, where I spent the rest of the 5 years there. And I educated myself. I learned all the things that mattered to me. And, you work in federal prison, so it's not an option.
Wait, tell me what that means.
So everybody has a job, and all the federal prisons have a specific job that they outsource. And so this particular one was 411, so like a call service.
Yeah.
And so that's where I wanted to be at because that's where all the money was at. But that was stressful. I did get on and I worked for a little bit and it was really
And are they
stressful.
compensating you for this
Oh, yeah, you
work?
get paid. Yeah, you get paid pennies on the dollar. Like at the Unicor is what they call it. Every prison has a Unicor. Is like at that particular one, I think the going rate, like you start out at like 36 cents an hour and then you
My
can work
God.
your way up to like 60 something cents an hour. And if you were doing overtime when that was allowed, you could almost make $1 an hour. But I left with money when I went home from prison, like, saved all my money and it's kind of a thing. But anyway, I made every day count. I started telling my story to the juveniles in the area. They would either come into the prison or we would go like to a local Red Cross and share. So there was like, maybe 10 of us on the compound of about 1,000 women who were volunteered and selected to be able to be in this program. And so I became the mentor to others. And sometimes you do a lot of work and you work really hard and nobody sees it, or you feel like it doesn't matter, but it matters to you. I feel like that in motherhood too, sometimes,
Girl,
right?
yeah, I hear you there. It sounds also like, based on you taking the role of keeping the unit clean and saving the cups from commissary, that and making sure that the people coming in had support and resources, that you started your mothering journey long
Yeah.
before you became a mama.
Yeah. Yeah. That was the first time I was in the mama role.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did you find, even in like a prison community, I imagine that social structure of people looking out for each other and taking care of each other, because everyone's got good days and bad days.
Yeah.
How important was that to you in your survival?
It was pretty remarkable. I had women who, like when I got to federal, like when I was in the county jail, I was the mama. And then when I got to federal prison, I had some women who kind of took me under their wing to just like they would cook meals and bring it to me and we would sit and eat together and they would, women group together. You find your tribe wherever you go. And, in our free time, you can do whatever you want to do, go outside and sit in the beautiful weather on the grass, have a meal together. You can meet and go to the cafeteria together and laugh or, I mean, you learn to live within the walls and we do. And, there's crocheting, there's all kinds of leather, there's all kinds of things you can do. For me, I leaned into what I'm still doing is body work. So getting into the body, whether it was Pilates or on the weight pile with weights, or whether it was, I finally got into yoga before I left and I learned everything I could. And as I was learning, I started taking over those classes and leading some of them. And that's where my first opportunity to really lead in groups of people in this way started happening. And all that was born and that was birthed at that time is what I brought with me outside. I also took classes from the community college and I got a business certificate. And so I just focused on all business. I just knew getting out, like getting a job. I'm not much of an employee. I can work for people. I can be an employee, but I really like to kind of do my own thing or, it's like teaching yoga or personal training is like more in the arena that I'm interested in, something creative or fun rather than just like a 9 to 5. And I also knew
Totally.
that having a record, like you hear how much the world's going to be against you. I was really fearful. I was more afraid the day I left prison than the day I was arrested. For sure.
Wow. Tell me
For
what
sure.
that looked like when you found out after all that you got through, waking up every day, finding something to look forward to, finding purpose, educating yourself, sharpening your wit, your mindset, which by the way, that just I imagine and I want to acknowledge that there was probably many women there who did not do
Oh,
that.
yeah. Oh, yeah. There were many who did not. A lot of people were just getting by, counting their days down, literally. I had the privilege of being in a unit where there were lifers and people doing long sentences, and they have a different, like, they're not going anywhere, so they're more settled, and they've decided, right, I'm going to be here, a lot of them. But they also give out medication in prison that sedates people who just kind of wants to check out more, can't deal with it. And there's some rowdy people, but for the most part, I never engaged with any of that or was really around it. So I feel very fortunate. And female prisons are not rough like what we hear the men's prisons are. Not really, not in comparison.
One curiosity that I have is being in prison with people who've done a multitude of crimes, some that maybe would be rendered unconscionable, and
Mhm.
some maybe
Mhm.
more minor.
Okay.
What did it teach you about unconditional love?
There was one little girl. Oh my God, I love her. What I learned in my own journey is that hurt people. And I don't believe that people are just evil. And there was one little girl who was doing hundreds of years. She was sentenced to hundreds of years because of child pornography. And a lot of people were hard on her. And she was a really small little girl, but I got to know her on purpose. And she always had her head down. Anyway, I got to know her on purpose. And I learned that that was her story. She was molested. And so when she had children, her father did it to her, and the man that she lived with abused her in these ways. And so she allowed this to happen to her children and was in on it. But that's all she knew, you know? And it's not cool to not even know someone and to treat them poorly. So, anyway, we're all human beings experiencing life, and nobody's more right than the other one. I know that, we've all been taught like what's right or wrong or good or bad, but, we lay in the bed at night and some people feel justified because they didn't do the thing that someone else did, or they feel terrible for doing, something. But what I understand is that we're all just living. We're all just doing our best. I mean, how many times, like, it's like I was vegan once before. Hard. I thought everybody needed to be vegan, and I chastised those who weren't, right? Even if I didn't out loud, I thought I knew more than someone else. And then over years, like I was like, wow, I need more nourishment, And so I changed what I was doing. And anyway,
Yeah.
I've had several of those experiences where I was all in on some decision of thinking I was right. And then I woke up the next day after years of having that, belief system. And I woke up the next day and was like, oh, okay.
It's so true. Like, and our experiences shape us and new realities, and being aware that we don't know what we would do in a certain situation when threatened, when in need, when under specific circumstances. And that when we look at the human in each other and remember that all of us are human and so deeply flawed and made of love that that is when we can foster connection and peace within ourselves and peace within each other. And I love that you said that you met her on purpose.
on purpose.
Yeah. I I bet there are no words for how much that mattered to her.
Yeah, she would always have her head down, and she would wear like a beanie, and she was always down. And then after some time, she started brightening up, and she moved it back, and so she wasn't always covered. It's like she was coming to life. It was really beautiful to watch.
So as you navigated probably the most difficult circumstances, one of the most difficult circumstances that any woman could imagine themselves being in. So then the clock is ticking and countdown is on. Maybe it's okay, 2 months to go, 30 days, 24, 16, 9. What was it like for you as the days were going on and you knew that you were going to be able to walk as free as you were going to be?
Man, that was, I prayed. I specifically asked where to go because that was a situation. Where was I going to go when I leave here? Because this is ultimately where I'm going to be. And in the federal system, you don't just get to choose to move somewhere else because it's not working out. So, like wherever you go, you kind of need to stay put. And so I had an opportunity to go to Jacksonville, Florida with people that I didn't know and start brand new, or I could go back home to.
Tell me what that means. So you would you moved in groups
No,
and
no. I
okay.
had created a relationship with someone that I had briefly met prior to my arrest who had chosen to stay with me through the journey. So it wasn't an intimate relationship, but it was kind of an agreement like, I'm here for you. And I said okay to that. So when it came time to leaving, I had to give an address, and it was either go back home to my family, to all the things that I know and all the things that I've like worked on. A benefit in that situation for me was that I got to think for myself. I didn't have the same family origin, expectations, history. Like I could be whoever I wanted to be. And I knew that getting out of prison was going to be the same way. If I went back home, it's the same person I've always been that my family says that I am, that I'm not. Or it's go to a new
Gosh,
land.
I think of the Taylor Swift. There's a line in one of her songs where it says the version of me, the version you thought I was, who was she? And
Mhm,
it's like the identities that people attach to other people, and I could see so much, not only fear, but like deep recognition of what's true for you to say,
mhm,
no, I'm not going to fall into that identity because I see myself as something different.
right. And I'd also worked for 8 years to heal parts of myself that were family related.
Right.
So, I didn't want to go there,
Yeah.
but I had a new opportunity that was just as scary because I didn't know what was going to happen. I had no idea. And so I come from a small town, and now I'm choosing to go to a large city. And the things that you hear from people that end up back in prison that left, or like they were late coming back to the halfway house. They didn't show up somewhere, or and of course they're more innocent maybe than they really are based on their story. But you leave prison thinking, oh my, well, for me, the biggest fear was like, oh my God, I never want to come back here. I have to do it all perfectly right. And I'm not sure if I can. What if I'm innocently wrong and I get lost, or just anything could happen? What if my probation officer is like, nope, that's it. You're going back. And so like you live with these fears of not knowing what's going to happen. And then I'm living in a place with a man who I'm not involved with in that way. And like, but what if I get there and he changes his mind? Because I've had history that says that people do that, and it's
And what if there's some invisible agreement that you weren't aware of, that he's
right,
going to have an
right,
expectation of you?
right. And
Gosh.
the fear.
Yeah.
And so getting in that car was that day walking out of prison was incredibly scary. I remember, I mean, I was just shaking. I was so scared. But I'd already had myself a job before I got out. Like, I really worked hard. I was, like, all-star student, man. I was, like, all-star prisoner. So, I got out, I already had a job, I already had everything lined up, like, I was working on getting it all together, and so I had a little more, security and control of what was going on and not having to live with 70. I was trying to remove the barriers of fear, and so, I get out, I move in, I, have a mantra on my leg, and I am driving now like 30, 40 minutes to work, to a mall, to a public facility, like all the temptations, like I have to be at the job, like I can't like go walk around anywhere, like I'll be in trouble or I'm afraid I will. Like it was just a huge fear thing. I remember like when I went in, people still had pagers and only a few people had those big box cell phones. And when I got out 8 years later, so I went in at 24, I got out at 32. It's almost a whole decade of my life, and I just remember, like, the phones, I was like, "Can you just get me an older phone that has, like, the keyboard on it? Because I don't even this is too much for me." And then, like, paying for, like, gas at the pump. What? And then I always used cash for everything, and, now everybody has these cards. You know, and so, I didn't know if I was supposed to hand it to the cashier or if there was a box I'm supposed to stick it in. I don't know how to work it. Like, it was such a big thing, and my anxiety was so bad. I never had so much anxiety in my life, and I didn't know how to deal with all these really big emotions. Like, I learned a lot when I was in prison, but they don't really like, there's nothing that's offered that's like, "Be with this emotion," you know?
Right. There's no
What
mindfulness somatic practice that's like,
what does
here's
that
some
even
tools that'll be
mean?
helpful. Right.
Right,
My God.
and so, anyway, yeah, I was just doing absolutely the best that I could, and I would come home and just, like, cry, lay in the bed, you know, like, nauseous, it was really intense, and how I got through that is I don't even know, honestly, wow. Being out is you have more options. Being free is you have more options, and when you've been limited with options for a long time and you get used to that, you don't know how to live with a lot of options, and it's scary. And something else that happened to me is when I got arrested, I stopped bleeding. I stopped having my moon cycle. My body shut down. 6 years in, I had my hormones tested, my blood tested, my hormone levels, and everything came back normal. I knew they were, but the PA wanted to give it a check. And anyway, 6 months before I got out, my body started activating again. 6 months before I got out, my mind started turning on and remembering and having cravings for things that, like, I smoked cigarettes and I was totally against it. I turned my whole life around 180 degrees to exercising now and leading classes. And I'm just like this healthy, super healthy person. I'm never gonna do that stuff again. And then, like, months before I get out, my body is, like, craving it. And, it's so interesting, like, how the body remembers. And now you've got all of that coming up again, and you don't know how to deal with that. You don't know, you know? And then you've still got a probation and community service and a job to go to and a new city and a new place, and it's overwhelming.
To say
It's
the least, it
overwhelming.
sounds like.
Yeah.
Then how long was that probationary period? It's just that liminal space between being free and not free at all.
So I had a monitor for 6 months on my leg. And that was go where you say you're going, which is work and back, and you have enough time to stop and get gas or whatever, like, there's no time, extra time. You go there and back, and even at your home, I was so afraid to even walk outside the house. The probation officer I had initially was really strict, and so, it was basically, like, confined to the house. Got that off after 6 months and started to venture out a little bit, and I had a 5-year sentence of probation, and in the federal like, when they sentence your probationary period, that's just as much a part of your sentence, and so if you have a lesser like, you have to actually petition the courts to ask if you can have less probation period. Most people don't ever even ask, but I did. I wanted off of paper. I wanted to be free. And so I had, friends and people who had known me, employers, everybody write letters on my behalf, and the judge granted it at 2.5 years.
Oh my gosh, that must have been such a huge sigh of relief.
Yeah,
How
it's
did you
also
feel when you
scary.
got that news?
Yeah, yeah. When I got arrested and they brought me the paperwork, it was one of the things that really got me the most was this sheet of paper that says the United States of America versus Misty Ray McCray. It's like the entire government, the entire country. I felt so insignificant. And then I heard God say, baby, I got you. And I'm way bigger than that, you know? So I was like, okay. And then to get at the end of it all, after the probation, and to be released early, and to get a letter from the judge who sentenced you saying you are released. It was, yeah, that was a sigh of relief. But I still, for years, it's so funny because I just thought about this just a couple of days ago. It's only been very recently. I've been out since November 2012. So for 13 years now. And it has just been recently, like very recently, like this year, like months, that if I see blue lights, I'm not startled. Like my internal system doesn't seize up when I see a cop pass by, or, like I'm finally like, there's a whole new part of my story that I just completely have relived that story in my own personal life in a different way with motherhood.
Yeah.
Like, I totally, wow. Like, I prayed for this baby, and 2 years later, I got pregnant. And then motherhood has been alone and dysfunction inside my family unit with just me and my husband. We had some previous issues that weren't addressed. And so he's my only support. We don't have like other people keeping the baby. And so for 3 solid years now, it's just been me and the baby and trying to work a job and trying to be in the community or just like anything. And so I literally this year just died all over again. I was having sensations in my head and I didn't know what they were, where they were coming from. And
Sensations as in like actual feeling.
yeah. And so October a year ago, my mother-in-law passed away with an aneurysm. And so I'm having all these crazy sensations out of nowhere. And so that's just still been on, our hearts. And so I'm like, I get in my head and I'm like, oh my God, am I like having an aneurysm? Am I like having some brain stuff? Like, what's going on? But it was a moment where I was feeling like I was going to lose consciousness for like an hour at a time. And this was happening day after day. And I ended up getting my levels checked at the hospital. And long story short is like 6 months ago, I had the big question, do you want to live or die? And it was like, I want to live. Actually, this is probably when you and I met. And some of that was the beginning of it.
Yeah.
And it was at that time that I feel like I had been dying up until that point, like just depleted and nonstop, just like not caring for myself, not even knowing how to anymore or what that even meant. And everything just, this has been a realization is like, I feel so depleted. And so 6 months ago, I was like, all right, I want to live. I want to live. And so that's when I got up and I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to figure it out. Like, because I feel like I just had the complete wind knocked out of me over a couple of years of mothering alone. And I was also still like vegetarian, closer to vegan. And I just, I just feel like I just wasn't nourished, the
Yeah.
relationship, everything. And so it was at that point I thought, well, I'm going to choose to live and everything's going to get better. And it was like, no, you needed to make a firm decision because now you really got to face a bunch of things that you've been, you haven't let your body feel. And so I went through this huge, like 6 months of like feeling. I've felt every emotion. And now I am like, genuinely, I am noticing myself. I'm like in the kitchen and I don't have the same, like I'll hear a loop in my head about something that I would have previously worried about. And I just witness it and it just, it's like it goes away. And I'm like, okay. I, it,
Isn't it so funny? Like our feelings, when we allow them,
mhm.
they float. It's 90 seconds. And if
Yeah.
you just sit with them, they pass through and you can acknowledge them, you can feel them and then move forward. Here's something something that I think is really interesting is that when we are aware that we're in a prison, it's easier to understand, okay, I have to get through this. Here are the tools I'm going to utilize one day at a time. And in many ways, our society has structured, and you can tell me to go fuck myself because I haven't been in prison and all those things. Sorry if you're
I would
sending this
never
over
say
here.
that, but okay.
But it's like, and then you think about like all of these other prisons that we actually are living in society, and that the walls aren't visible, but they're there. So, for example, mothering alone, that is a prison in some
Mhm,
ways.
mhm.
And then thinking about like corporate America and having to have a job and pay to be alive and all those things, it's a prison. And when we start to acknowledge where we are, when we acknowledge the confines, it's almost like that is when we can find the steps to get out. So being really radically honest. The prison that you were in, it was obvious and literal. But for the prison that you found yourself in later, it had to be acknowledged.
Mhm.
You had to hit the bottom and then had to start to find those same, maybe the same tools, find something to be positive about every day and start to navigate back home to yourself. So, how does that land with you? As that was all coming up for me while you were talking.
So, what I realized really big about the prisons that we find ourselves in, put ourselves in, are in, is to someone, it could be cancer. To someone, it might be a divorce, a death of their child, or a close family member. For me, it was a physical prison. And going through that physical experience in that way, I see more clearly in myself and in others where we box ourselves in. We get the opportunity to say, this is where we are in our lives every single day. And when there's bigger things, like recently I woke up and, realized that I'm just being negative and where, like earlier this year, it's like I had gotten so depleted. I didn't do it on purpose. I wasn't doing that on purpose, but, I'd gotten more grim and darker and felt more depleted and woke up and was like, wait, 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 wait. What am I doing? What am I going to do about this? And it's that way in life with all of us and all of our things, we are every day we get to choose. And this is where I'm at right now is this choice that I'm making right now depleting me or nourishing me?
Mm,
Is this person depleting me or nourishing me? Is this drink depleting me or nourishing me? Is this rest depleting me or nourishing me? And I think right now I'm really landing because that's really big for me is we could say, is it right or wrong? Is it good or bad? Is it which one's most best, right? Maybe it's a rock and a hard place, but it's like with every decision, and it doesn't matter how far down you are. And sometimes we do have to hit the rock bottom before we are willing to see how bad it really is.
well, the universe just keeps getting louder.
Hmm.
So if you don't pay attention, it's going to wallop you over the head one day.
Oh my gosh.
So, my question to you is what advice do you have for people who are navigating a prison, literal or situational?
It's all inside. It's an inside job. I believe in my own personal experience that we are the creators of our reality. And sometimes it's really, 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 really hard to admit to ourselves that we had a part, that we're not just the victim. And sometimes that's really hard. But once we can make that decision, we are gaining our power back to do something about it. So maybe you are looking at 45 years, or maybe you are looking at something that terrifies you by accepting where you are. But once you say, all right, I played a part in this, or I am in on this, what do I want to do about it? And your choices might be limited today. But if you choose the best decision today for yourself, then you can do that every day. And before you know it, your life won't look the same anymore. You can literally change your situation just by searching and seeking within yourself. It's really getting honest with yourself and choosing what you want. You can stay mad, you can stay hurt, you can stay the victim, or you can choose to express in a healthy way, hopefully, some of that, those tears or that anger, that grief. You can feel it, you can let it consume you, and you can go within. You can let it burn you all the way up. But what's going to be left is the beauty. You can choose joy. You can choose life. You can. We all can.
And then when we hold up the piece of silver,
Mm,
see our own reflection,
mm-hmm,
the image of God by
mm-hmm.
which we were created. Well,
The
it's so
purity,
powerful.
our innocence.
So now you're a mom, you've navigated all of this, you're figuring out what's next for you. And as we were talking before the show started about motherhood and its limitations and all those things, for us, many prison is it looks one way. We all understand sort of what this looks like. And motherhood, we've been told that it looks one way, and we all understand what this looks like. It's the pregnancy glow, it's the love, it's the cute little chubby hands and all of the stuff. But what we haven't been told about are all of the bits in between, the human part of motherhood, where you have to unbecome
Mm,
all that you were and become all that you are while simultaneously like keeping someone else alive and navigating the world. And I don't believe that motherhood was meant to be done alone. And the way that our society has been, we've got these households and
mm-hmm,
there's roles within the households and
mm-hmm,
we're all sort of navigating this separately. And I have to
mm-hmm.
tell you that some of my most fun nights in motherhood are when my best friend comes over with her kids and then we can take turns. The kids are entertaining each other. They learn from each other and we're in it together. And one of the most important tools that I've used is human design. And that's helped
Mm,
me to figure out one, like understanding myself more has allowed me to break the mold because I don't understand a lot of the way that society has been structured when we really get to brass tacks about it. I don't understand the image of mother that has been pitched to us. So when I stopped and exactly like you said, looked inward, it's all in me, started to understand myself and get to know myself more, where I make decisions, how I understand things, what I need to do to recharge. That information was so empowering for me to take the next step forward, to kind of like unlock the gates of my own life in everything so that I could show up exactly as I am
mm-hmm.
all the time, unapologetically. So tell me how human design has helped you come back home to yourself in motherhood and otherwise.
Yeah. So I think for me, I learned about myself and the human design sort of briefly, and I'm a projector.
My dog is
So
a
that
projector.
started making a lot of sense. It's like, okay. And so learning that I needed to wait for the invite in all of my relationships was helpful. But just very recently, I have graduated to unlocking the emotional inner authority, which is, I believe, in my opinion, a huge part of what I'm doing on the planet. And so, as you say, like, how do I work with someone or what does that look like? I'm the projector. So what people give me is a mirror. I'm able to project that. I'm able to see. I'm also very intuitive and I'm Piscean and like water, all kind of fire in my chart. And so like I am a strong personality, but all my life I showed up strong because I am a Leo sun. So people thought I was confident when I was shaking in my boots, but it was when I hit motherhood that I was stripped in ways that I'd never been stripped before. Not even a prison sentence did it because there was no one else to care for it. It was just me. And then when it came, like, I felt so weak and I went back and learned a little more about the human design and still have so much more to discover there. But I now understand that the phase that I'm in is I have literally like started to peer in, unlock, and open the door of my inner authority. And I'm learning now how to be that in a society that wants wronged me for being free.
My gosh.
It's like a true full circle right now in my life where I know when I was making decisions like to drive the drug dealer somewhere that I was breaking the law, but had codes. I wasn't going to allow a first time user, a pregnant woman, somebody under 18. Nobody ever in my presence was able to use any drugs like that. Never. Like, I thought I was like a good human. And so when I got arrested and it was such a huge, hefty consequence that I still believe with all my heart, will forever believe that I prayed for help, and that's how it came to me, but there's still the human aspect, like, it's like the spirit knows, but there's still the human and the body, and so I'm unlocking. I let myself, like, I truly died and, like, went there this year. It was what my body has needed to be free again, because after some of that happening, I feel like I literally just unlocked some of that trauma from prison. I've just been dealing with life since I got out, and I actually felt into all of that. And so the inner authority to say, like, I'm a mom, that's how it is, or whatever it is, to just be able to be authentic and be myself. And then working with people is, well, it's all of that. It's showing up and holding space for someone else, asking good questions for them to discover their own truth, and just really discovering for themselves, like, how to be authentic. And that's, as long as we're doing that, we're in that. We're in the channel when we are true to ourselves, our truth of who we are, not our trauma, not true to our trauma, not true to our stories, that not true to the mental, but like true to our authenticity. It's our God nature. It's the love. It's the source of all that is. It's like when we're true to that and living by that, there's nothing that could ever not be the best thing that ever happened to us, even when it hurts like hell, like a prison sentence.
Wow. And I think it's an important thing to note too is that even like your mindset and everything that took you through the prison system and knowing that you needed a reset, surrendering to the experience, being positive, supporting other people, and all of those things, that even still after that, you had to enter a society where it goes into high gear. Survival mode. You have to pay the bills. You have to do this and this. And so your life went on and you didn't have the space or the safety to fully process all of the grief of the whole experience because you've been in survival mode since t- August 2005.
Hmm.
And then now your body released it so that you
Hmm.
can access a deeper layer of truth. And I almost view this like a cycle and you're spinning onward. And people think that growth is linear, or if you think that growth is linear, like you wrong.
No, it's
It is
Errol.
yeah, it is a spiral. And just the fact that you acknowledge that, yes, everything that you had got you to this moment. And then once you found one, like a safe community of women and more trust in yourself, finding similar language to identify all the things that you went through and additional tools, at that point, you could set this down. So glad that you were here and that you joined today. And I have one question for you because I know you've got a kid with an iPad and I've got to go to a kindergarten party. Real life and baby. What are you doing today to show up unapologetically?
I'm doing what's right for me, even when nobody else understands that, and it's okay.
How can people find you and get in touch with you, my dear?
So, Instagram, She Became the Way is my handle. And you can look me up, Misty McCray, on Facebook. And She Became the Way at gmail.com is always a personal way to just send me an email if you're ever interested in reaching out. And
I hope that you continue to tell your story, and I hope you continue to tell the story of all of the women that you've touched over the course of your journey because you are truly an earth angel and God put you there for a reason. It's almost like you knew it all along.
yeah, thank you, Ashley. I have plans of starting a podcast myself. And some of the people I want to interview, some of the most important people, are the ones that I spent prison time with. People who I just admired for, had been there for 28 years already. And I watched them living their life there, and just remarkable human beings. And so that'll be coming as well.
I cannot wait.
Yeah.
Do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Do it.
Yeah. 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 I'm doing it. I'm doing it for sure. I want to, just have some really great conversations because I believe that how we remember is through stories. And it's like when someone hears my story, what they take from it is something that is the part of the story for them. That's their piece that they need. And, we're all connecting in stories and in words. And it's also, I don't like to use the word healing, but, it's very nurturing, I think, for ourselves to be able to share our own medicine, our own journey, and how much we get out of it just from sharing it, much less what others are receiving. And so, I really appreciate you having me on today and just being a bright light in my life and many others. And thank you so, so much, Ashley.
The feeling is quite mutual. I'm so glad that our paths crossed, and I can't wait to see where you go. So, for all of those listening in, give Misty a follow. I know that you are going to hear her name over and over and over again. And I can't wait to see what you do with your story because the ripple of it is just incredible. I could talk with you all day and ask you 1,000 questions, but thank you for sharing your magic with us. For those of you tuning in, please like, follow, comment, share, and send me an email at hello@ashleydlogan.com. We want to hear from you, or follow along on Instagram at ashleydlogan.com or at Unapologetically Yours podcast. I'm Ashley. This is Misty. And until next time, we are unapologetically yours.